So I may or may not have made another order to Joni Clothing, and this is one of the results. So I couldn't help myself. Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. So today I am back to do another tag video. Today I am doing the musical theatre book tag. Now there are two versions of this tag floating around. However, the two tags use different musicals as part of their prompts, and the one that I am doing today is the slightly newer one, which was created by Maddie from Book Browsing Blog. Her version of this tag has some more newer contemporary musicals, whereas the original has some more classic, more established musicals. So if you are interested in my answers to those questions, do let me know. I'll leave both versions of this tag down below for you. As you might know if you've spent any amount of time on my channel, I'm quite a big fan of musical theatre, so I definitely wanted to give this tag a go. So the way that this musical theatre tag works is it takes a musical and takes one particular song title and then kind of gets a question prompt from that song title. So the first musical is Hamilton and the song is Satisfied, with the question, what book had an unsatisfying ending or needs a sequel? Was there a book that you got to the end of and you were just kind of like, huh? What? I think I need more from you. And for me personally, the last book that I really remember having a kind of, huh? reaction to the ending was Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. So Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine follows the main character, Eleanor Oliphant, as she kind of navigates her life. She's seen as quite a strange character to many people. She's often at quite a distance from people. She often doesn't know how to socially interact with people, and she basically just goes to work, does her job, comes home, never interacts with anybody, and spends the entire weekend just drinking on the couch. We know that she has some sort of tragic backstory which gets revealed as we go through the book, but initially we do not know what has happened to Eleanor to make her the way that she is. I did generally enjoy this book, however there is a twist right at the end of the book that left me kind of thinking, I'm not sure I'm too pleased with that. I read this right about the same time as I read Three Things with Elsie, and both of these books have this same twist, so kind of having them back to back was a bit like, not so pleased with that. I realise very much that you can have no idea what that is if you haven't read either of these books, but yeah, that for me was an ending that left me just unsatisfied. The next question is based around the musical Everybody's Talking About Jamie, and it is the title song, Everybody's Talking About Jamie. I love this musical, and can I just point out that I was meant to be seeing it on tour, and then coronavirus happened, so we've not been able to see it. And the question is, what is a really hyped book you want to read only because of the hype? Now, I typically tend to read just kind of based around my mood. Like, hype will sometimes come into the equation and will kind of motivate me to pick a book up, but I'm generally not somebody who does just pick a book up because of the hype. However, there is an exception to this. Whenever I go on holiday with my family, I kind of make that my time to pick up a lot of the books that I've been hearing a lot of buzz, a lot of hype about, but for whatever reason, I've just not picked it up yet. So throughout the year, I will keep like an ongoing list of books that I've heard a lot about, and if by the time we're preparing to go on holiday, I've still not picked that book up, I will make some sneaky purchases. And yeah, once again, coronavirus came to completely ruin my plans because we were meant to be going on holiday in May, and obviously that didn't end up happening. So I had a bunch of books which I was so prepared to read on my May holiday and have just not gotten round to because of coronavirus. So at the moment on this little hype holiday list of books that I would have read in May had I gone on holiday, we've got Wilder Girls, we've got Weather by Jenny Offal, we've got Ask Again Yes by Mary Beth King, and we've got The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. I am really hoping that at some point in the next year or so we will be able to go on holiday and I can get to some of those books and get to any of the books that get hyped up in the next year or so. But for now, we're not there yet. The next musical is Anastasia, and the song title is Journey to the Past. Oh, I do love Anastasia. I think if I had any chance of being a musical theatre actress, I think Anya would be like a dream role for me. And the question to this prompt is, name a book which features flashbacks or developed backstories. And for this prompt, I have Mr. Loverman by Bernardine Evaristo. Yes, I did just do a review of this, you know, cheeky plug. But in this particular book, the main narrative takes place, I think, 2010, 2011, but we do flashbacks flashback to the previous 50-60 years of Barry's life, and chapter by chapter we slowly uncover more of his backstory, of Carmel's backstory. Flashbacks play a very prominent role in this to really assert these different characters' contradictions and fluctuations in personality and the misdeeds that went on during the 50 years of this married couple's lives. Obviously there are a lot of different books that I could have picked for this that have very developed flashbacks and backstories, but I feel like the way that Bernardine Evaristo used the flashbacks in here was just so well done and really added to the characters. It wasn't just a weird little plot device for no reason. It was definitely like a considered character choice, and I think it was handled beautifully in here. The next musical is Be More Chill, and the song is Michael in the Bathroom. Now this is a musical that I have actually never listened to. I've heard of Be More Chill, but I've never sat down and actually listened to the cast recording or seen the show performed live. I know it's really popular, I've just not gotten around to it yet. But from what I understand, Michael in the Bathroom is about a character who is at a party and he's hiding in the bathroom from his friends, which I have to say is the most relatable thing that I have ever heard. And the question for this is, if you were spacing a party by hiding in a bathroom, what book would you take with you? Now, I wasn't really sure for this one whether that would be like a comfort read that you would take with you, or just generally like, what book would you take to a bathroom? Because I was just kind of like, I don't know, I'd just take whatever book I had with me, because I always take a book with me, whatever my current read is. So I think at the moment that would be Middlemarch by George Eliot. Because I don't know about anybody else, but I'm entirely the kind of person who would bring a big chunky book in my bag to a party, just in case I need it. I'm just so great with social interactions, guys. So yeah, for me it would be whatever book I just happen to have on hand, and this is the one, I guess. The next musical is Six, and the song title is Ex-Wives. I adore this musical. If you know me, I've been trying to get everybody in my life to go see Six, and the prompt for this is name a book that is a twist or a retelling of a well-known story. As we know, recently I've been really getting into like my ancient Greek myth retellings, thanks in part to another book which I have read recently and may or may not be featuring in one of these questions. But before I read that book, I did in fact read 1,000 Ships by Natalie Haynes last year, which is a retelling of the Trojan War from the perspective of all of the different women. We've got Briseis, we've got Helen of Troy, we have Clytemnestra, we've got Creusa, and so many more women who were engaged in the Trojan War, but who don't really get the time of day in Homer's Iliad, for example. If you've seen my recent wrap-ups, you'll know that I read The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker last month. And I think part of the reason that that kind of let me down was because I had also read this last year, and this is really everything that I think The Silence of the Girls could have been, because this really does take the sweeping narrative look at all of these different women's lives rather than just focusing on one woman, Briseis, as is the case in Silence of the Girls. Like from the very first lines, this book just really got under my skin. Sing, Muse, he says, and the edge in his voice makes it clear that this is not a request. If I were minded to accede to his wish, I might say that he sharpens his tone on my name, like a warrior drawing his dagger across a whetstone, preparing for the morning's battle. But I am not in the mood to be amused today. Perhaps he hasn't thought of what it is like to be me. Certainly he hasn't. Like all poets, he thinks only of himself. But it is surprising that he hasn't considered how many other men there are just like him, every day, all demanding my unwavering attention and support. How much epic poetry does the world really need? If you've read the epic poems like the Odyssey and the Iliad and the Aeneid, you'll know that they all start with a call to the muses to give inspiration to the poet. And I just really liked that this book immediately turned it on its head and had a muse that was kind of like, why? What if I was busy right now? What if I had something else that I wanted to do? Why must I always be called? Why can't you just get your inspiration by yourself? Obviously, there is so much tragedy in this, but I also feel like there's like a little glint of humour, which I really appreciated. So yeah, if you are into your ancient Greek myth retellings, then I highly recommend this because I think it's very good. And I believe that this was shortlisted for the Women's Prize this year, which I was so pleased to see. The next musical is The Last 5 Years, and the song prompt for this is Still Hurting. What book hurt you and has stuck with you ever since? Listen, it's the last book that made me cry, okay? I'm not going to talk about it, but read it! The next musical is Come From Away, and the song prompt is Me in the Sky. Just side note, can we talk about the fact that this tag has used all 3 of the musicals that were featured in my MA dissertation? Take a shot every time I mention my MA dissertation. But we've had Hamilton, Six, and Come From Away. Thank you, Maddie, thank you very much. And the question for this is, pick a book which features your dream job, real or fantastical. What an appropriate question for me, since I am currently looking for a job. Unemployment is so great, guys. And I mean, for me, the job areas that I'm kind of looking into are either publishing or like public history kind of focused jobs. I couldn't quite find a book that matched for like the public history kind of side, but I did find something for publishing because, as we all know, in every single rom-com, the protagonist is either working in publishing or in advertising. So for that, I've got The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. In this book, the main character Tiffy is working, I believe, as an editorial assistant at a crafty books publisher, which I feel like was really sticking in the knife for me, because not only is she living in London at a flat share, which is like £350 a month, bills included, but she's also working in editorial. It's not fair, guys. I mean, I don't necessarily 100% know that I'd want to work in editorial. Like, I would quite happily be in marketing or publicity or just anything to do with books. Publishers, if you are hiring, I'm here, I'm willing. Is that a sign of desperation? I think it is. The next musical is Newsies and the song is Santa Fe. Which fictional place would you love to visit? And I feel like the obvious answer is Hogwarts. And I was trying to think of something a little less obvious, but like for any of the more fantastical fictional worlds, I couldn't think of anywhere that was like as good to go to, because I feel like all of the fantasy, sci-fi, anything that I've read like that, all of those worlds tend to be terrible. Like, I would not want to live in Westeros. I would not want to live in Panem. Like, no. So yeah, I wanted to get a bit more creative with this answer than to give the obvious one, but I think, yeah, Hogwarts. The next musical is Waitress, and the song is When He Sees Me, which has become my new favourite song to sing around the house. And the question is, what book did you fall in love with the second that you saw the cover? And I mean, I could have chosen a lot of books for this. I do love a beautiful cover of a book, and do let me know if you'd like to see like a beautiful books video at some point. I'd be so up for doing that. But actually for this question, I've gone for something a little bit different. So we know that last month I read The Buildings That Made London, which was a children's picture book all about the buildings that made London, surprisingly. However, I might not have picked that book up had I not previously read and loved this book, which is Step Inside Homes Through History. This is a National Trust collaboration with the children's publisher Nosy Crow. And I actually remember going into my local independent bookshop, going into the children's section, seeing this and being like, I want this. And it is literally a book about how homes have changed throughout history. So as you can see, you've got the outside, like this is a little Tudor house, and then when you open it, you've got the inside of the house and all these little labels, and then you go on to the next page and it's all about like Tudor fashion of the time period and objects that you might have seen in a Tudor house, and it just goes through all of the different periods. I mean, they kind of jump from Tudor to Georgian, which, I mean, as somebody who is not a big fan of the Stuart time period of history, that I'm fine with, I don't care. So you've got your lovely little Georgian house, then on the inside, and it's just beautiful. And I was so pleased. Like, I pointed this out to my mum and I was like, I know this is ridiculous, but I so want to get this for Christmas. And I wasn't expecting to get it, and yet she got it for me because she's a good mother. Once again, if you have a little person in your life or a big child like me, highly recommend this. On to the penultimate musical now. We have Dear Evan Hansen, and the song prompt is Disappear, hype and underrated backlist book. And the book that I wanted to pick for this was Late Fragments, Everything I Want to Tell You About This Magnificent Life by Kate Gross. This is a book I read 5 years ago and I absolutely loved it. It left me like absolutely heartbroken, but I never hear people talk about it, and I'm just gonna read the blurb for you. Ambitious and talented, Kate Gross worked at number 10 Downing Street for 2 British Prime Ministers while only in her 20s. At 30, she was the CEO of a charity working with fragile democracies in Africa. She had married the best looking man I'd ever kissed and given birth to twin boys. The future was bright. But age 34, Kate was diagnosed with advanced colon cancer. After a 2-year battle with the disease, Kate died peacefully at home on Christmas morning, just minutes before her sons awoke to open their stockings. She began to write as a gift to herself, a reminder that she could create even as her body tried to self-destruct. Written for those she loves, her book is not a conventional cancer memoir, nor is it filled with medical jargon or misery. Instead, it is Kate's powerful attempt to make sense of the woman who emerged in the strange, lucid final chunk of her life. Kate should have been granted decades to say all this. Denied the chance to bore her children and grandchildren with stories when she is fat and old, she offers her thoughts on how to live, on the wonder to be found in the everyday, the importance of friendship and love, what it means to die before your time, and how to live your life with hope and joy, even in the face of tragedy. So if that didn't get you from the blurb, I don't know what will. But I remember this came out about a year or so before When Breath Becomes Air. And I remember when I read both of those books thinking how very similar they are. Obviously, they touch on different topics and different careers. But I feel like both of those were very similar kind of premises. Memoirs written by parents who know that they are like late stage of cancer, writing about their lives and their extraordinary careers, what they were able to do, and also what they've not been able to do. But writing for their children and kind of giving life lessons to their children. And I found this so very, very touching, and I think it's such a shame that I never hear people talking about this now. The last musical is Legally Blonde, and the prompt question is what you want. What do you want to see more of in books? This one caused me a bit of grief because I feel like I'm very much a non-questioning kind of person. Like, I will just take what I'm given. I'm really glad that recently we've been having much more of the conversation about getting more diversity into books. You know, the fact that we've not got a lack of writers from diverse backgrounds who have things to say. We've just not been promoting them. We've just not been publishing them. And I think that's really, really good. Aside from that, what do I want to see more of in books? I mean, as a history student, I generally want to see more accessible, exciting history books that lots of people are going to get engaged with, and is kind of going to break down the barrier between like the academic historian and the public, because that is something that we need to smash right down. But that might be the public history student in me coming through. I did see a tweet the other day where somebody was saying, I just want to see one book where the villain and the hero end up teaming up and take over the world together. And I was like, yeah, I'd read that. I want to see more of that, please. I like that idea, the idea of like the hero and the villain meeting up and the villain explaining what their motivation is and the hero just kind of thinking, yeah, that seems fair enough. I think I'll help you with that. I think that would be great. And then the bonus question is pick your favourite musical and recommend a book that reminds you of it. Now, would you like to have one book recommendation or 47? Because if you do, cheeky plug, I actually did a book recommendations video all about the musical Hamilton, where I tried to match books that I had read behind me with each of the songs in the musical Hamilton. So I might be slightly cheating for this question, but you know, 47 book recommendations, ahoy! I'll leave that down below if you are interested, but yes, those are all of the questions in the new updated version of the musical theatre book tag. I hope you really enjoyed hearing my answers to those questions. Now, in terms of who to tag, I am not 100% sure who in the booktube community is a fan of musical theatre who would be interested in doing this tag. However, if you are a big fan of musicals and you want to say that I tagged you, then go right ahead. I would be quite happy to take the blame for that. I hope you're all having a fantastic, fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks, bye!